Yes, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening. My name is Obis Widi. My BIM number 2027-3028. And this recording, I would like to present to you my reading report of genre versus register. The first topic is what is text varieties? Language speakers make decisions about pronunciation, morphology, word choice, and grammar based on a variety of non-linguistic variables. These aspects include the speaker's communication aim, the relationship between the speaker and the hearer, the production circumstances, and the speaker social characteristics. Texts can be characterized in terms of their context, taking into account the qualities of the people who created the text as well as the situation and communication aims connected with text. The broad term variety refers to a group of writings that share some social or situational feature. A national version of English, for example, refers to text created by English speakers who live in a given country, for example, British English, Australian English, Indian English, etc. We are focusing on text varieties that occur in particular situation of use, genre, register genres and styles. Genre registers and styles. Uh, Genre registers and styles are various ways of or views for interpreting text variations rather than separates types of text and variety. In the genre perspective, the focus is on the linguistic characteristics that are used to structure complete texts. Uh, the genre perspective usually focuses on language characteristics that occur only once in the text. These features serve a crucial role in how texts from a particular variety are constructed. For this reason, genre studies must be based on analysis of complete text from the variety. These languages features are conventionally associated with the genre. They conform to the culturally expected way of constructing text belonging to the variety. Any text samples can be analyzed from a register perspective, considering the typical linguistic features associated with situational context. The linguistic feature occur throughout texts from a register, so complete texts are not required to analyze register characteristics. Complete texts that are analyzed from a genre perspective can be also analyzed from a register perspective. For example, text which illustrates the genre conventions for opening a newspaper story also illustrates the linguistic characteristics that are typical of the register of newspaper reporting. These linguistic features include past tense verbs, example, killed, injured, said, indicated, passive voice verbs, example, being triggered, were told, were pressed, and reported speech, both direct quotes and indirect reported speech. These features are pervasive in newspaper stories and distributed throughout these texts, and thus they can be identified in either complex text or text excerpts. The style perspective is similar to register perspective in that it considers that the typical linguistic features associated with a collection of text samples from a variety. The two perspectives differs in their interpretation, that is, in the underlying reason for the observed linguistic patterns. The linguistic patterns associated with styles are non-functional. Rather, these features associated with aesthetic preferences influenced by the attitude of speakers or writers about language. That is, a speaker or author often has attitude about what considered a good style, resulting in the manipulation of language or aesthetic purposes. Styles are generally distinguished for the text within a register or genre. The most common application of this concept is to describe systematic variation within the register or genre of fiction. But a similar notion of style has been used to study variation within the register of conversation, where each subculture can be described as having a distinctive communicative style or conversational style, meaning that they have different norms for how they usually structure a conversation, relating to different speech rates, different pause lengths between turns, whether overlapping speech is considered to be polite or not, and etc. Particular fictional styles are usually associated with individual authors. For example, authors like Virginia Woolf and Toni Morrison prefer fictional styles with extremely long, complex sentences mixed in very short single clause sentences. In contrast, an author like Ernest Hemingway preferred a style with consistently short, simple sentences, but style can also be associated with different groups of authors or different historical periods. Next point is text varieties, registers, and dialects. The term text refers to natural language used for communication, whether spoken or written. Therefore, excuse me, a research paper like a novel or newspaper piece is a text. A sermon and a face-to-face talk are both text in speech. The general term variety is used for a category of text that shares some social or situational characteristic. For example, a national variety of English refers to the text produced by the English speaker who reside in a specific country, for example, British English, Australian, Indian, etc. Much social linguistic studies have concentrated on variance link with various group of speakers. Example, people who live in different geographic regions, different socioeconomic classes, ethnic groups, women versus men, etc. Dialects are socially defined variants of language. A register is a variety associated with a particular situation of use, including particular communicative purposes. The description of registers covers three major components: the situational context, the linguistic features, and the functional relationship between the first two components. Complete text and text excerpt. Complete text is an instance of extended discourse that has a clear start and a finish, such as research article or a sermon. Text excerpts are a segment of discourse extracted from a large complete text. The notion of complete text is in itself somewhat fluid. First, text can be considered at different levels of generality. Thus, a chapter in a book might be considered a complete text, but the entire book might also be considered a complete text. Similarly, in spoken language, a joke told during a sermon might be considered a complete text, but the entire sermon can also be treated as a complete text. Beyond that, the boundaries of complete text are not always explicit or clear cut. This is especially in case in speech. Generally, in style in literary studies, literary genres are diverse types of literature that use different textual norms. Poetry, theater, and fictional prose, for example, are three important literary forms. The most apparent distinction between the three genres is most likely the physical arrangement. Fictional writing is often represented in paragraphs with an indentation at the beginning of each paragraph and each line covering the whole page. Complete sentences are proper sentence punctuation are also common in fictional literature. In literature, the style perspective is especially essential in describing the distinctive discourses associated with various writers or historical eras, reflecting differing aesthetic tastes. Styles like registers can be explained in terms of the common and pervasive language elements utilized in various types of conversation. For example, in 18th century fiction is distinguished by externally lengthy sentences, but 20th century fiction is distinguished by significantly shorter sentences. Authors, authors' distinctive style vary, sometimes dramatically. For example, in contrast to the more normal types of speech in the early 18th century. Defoe is well recognized for writing in a straightforward and clear style of fiction. Johnson, who wrote in the second part of the 18th century, is noted for his much more complex discourse style. Literary style, like registers, may be investigated using the same analytical approaches. The underlying causes of style variation, on the other hand, are connected to aesthetic choices and attitudes towards language rather than more direct functional influence from the communicative situation. That is all for my reading report. Thank you for your attention. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.